and welcome to the Wandering Creatives Podcast. I'm your host, Allie, and joining me for today's episode is Diane Foy. And Diane is a creativity coach for multi-passionate artists, and she empowers her clients through her coaching to embrace their talents and ambitions. And I am so excited to have you on the podcast today, Diane. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
We were just talking, and I literally said I'm always looking for more creativity coaches to be on the podcast. So when you reached out to be a guest, I was immediately like, yeah, got to get you on here. Like, let's talk about this, especially when it comes to multi-passionate artists, because I feel like a lot of creatives and artists are very much multi-passionate individuals. So I'm very excited to talk to you today about how folks can manage their multiple passions and work it into building that kind of authentic personal brand and incorporating everything into it. So I cannot wait to dive into that with you today.
Cool.
And you yourself, I mean, you've done a ton of stuff. Like, your background is absolutely amazing. You were an art and entertainment publicist for 16 years. You were a makeup artist and did makeup on sets and fashion shows. You were a fashion photographer, and now creativity coach and podcaster. I mean,
yeah,
that's insane.
And the funny thing is, the multi-passionates will understand that most of the time I was hiding all those other parts of me. And because most people will tell you, you can't do all that. You can't, do more than one thing. Or if you're doing one thing and you're successful at it, people don't understand when you're like, but I want to go do that. It's like, well, why don't you just stick with what you got? And people don't get it. So that's been a challenge. Even when I started coaching, I tried to focus and stick to one kind of niche, but I think I've just come to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to own it. This is who I am. And this is who I can help, because I am that as well. And my favorite clients have been, my focus for the last couple of years has been coaching musicians and actors, because that's my PR experience in those worlds. But my favorite clients have been the musician who also is a animator, filmmaker, painter, or the actor that's a writer, director, producer, or, the ones that the singer-songwriter, yoga teacher, sound healer. I'm like, I get excited, and they're kind of put off at first, like when they tell me all this, because they're almost embarrassed to tell me all these things that they're doing, because most people will say you can't. And where I get all excited, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited that you do all that things. Let's do this. And they're like, really? Yeah.
Yes. Let's figure out how to make it into one, or not even make it into one thing, but figure out like how it can work together to be something. Like, that's, I think, something that excites me very much about what you do, because I think we are told, right? Like, we have to niche down. We have to find our niche. We got to like pick that one thing and focus on it. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. So it's exciting to talk to someone who definitely fosters that kind of like, okay, so you have multiple things that you really enjoy. Let's piece together how we can make this into something that works for you.
Yeah. Because I think when I was, a publicist, I had my company name, I had my business, and all my messaging was, I'm a publicist, I'm your music and film publicist. But I would no one really knew that I was a makeup artist for so long, that I'm a photographer. And so photography keeps kind of coming back in. I do it for a while, and then I put it aside for a while, and then I bring it back, and no one knew. So I would have a different website for that. Then, I was making jewelry. So then I have a different website for that. And, no one knew I did any of it. And also, when your focus is so split, it's like you have different lives. I was also a pet specialist. I still am. It's like people don't know all the things I was doing because it would all be separate, different lives. And it's also hard to keep up with separate websites, social media accounts, all that stuff. And it's like, so I wasn't really sharing the other stuff as well. And it was about 2017, maybe. Publicity had changed so much that I wasn't enjoying that anymore. And I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. It was kind of the first time because I always had a new path I wanted to go on. And I was like, I'm going to rebrand myself. I'm going to give up my PR company name and put everything I do on dianefoy.com. And wherever it takes me, that's, the one's website. And maybe I'll get back into photography. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe something else will come up. Maybe I'll still do publicity. And so kind of 2017, I kind of experimented and just went with the flow of, I'd get PR jobs here and there. I did some photography and I was trying to figure it out. And then by the end of the year, I went to this branding for artists workshop. And it's like, I didn't even know why I was going because I'm like, well, I know that. I know all about branding for artists, but I don't know. I was curious, whatever. So I went. And it was a really great experience to hang out with other artists. And it kind of made me want to do what she was doing, which is more of a coaching, consulting. And I was like, oh, the light bulb moment hit. By the end of the day, I'm like, coaching. Yes, that is what I'm going to do. And then, of course, us multi-passionates get a little obsessed.
Yep.
Laugh because it's true.
Yes.
Get a little obsessed. We spend all night researching on the internet and wanting to know everything we can about it. And even when it came to which coaching program I would take to learn, I was split. Because I'm like, well, yes, there's life coaching, but that's not all I would want to do. There's business coaching programs. And then there was creativity coaching and drawn to that. But even then I was like, well, that doesn't encompass everything I want to do either. So I kind of took a little of everything. So my 2018 was spent studying coaching. I took 2 courses from Eric Maisel, who is the creator of creativity coaching, and he's written like 50 books on creativity, and he is part of the Creativity Coaching Association. And so that was great to like learn more about the mindset of creatives, how to coach unique things that come up for writers or visual artists or performing artists. Meanwhile, I was also taking life coaching and then also marketing, entrepreneurship coaching. And I discovered online courses. So I was also taking like animal Reiki and communication.
Just all of the courses.
And everything I ever wanted. Like the most ridiculous one I think I have is I have a certificate in crystal healing.
You never know.
I laugh at it because it's one of those like internet certifications that, and I'm like, you can read a book and know as much as I do about crystal healing, but
combine that with your animal Reiki and it's a perfect pairing.
Yeah.
So 2017, 2018 was really a time of kind of digging in and finding new tools and new ways to I guess use this new passion for creativity coaching.
Yeah. And it was also a way to combine all that experience I had the whatever I was coaching on, it's like when I'm coaching artists on branding or marketing, it's like, well, we also have to talk about photography. Like, especially when you're talking to, performing artists, that they need that headshot, they need the photos of themselves. But even now with the internet and Instagram, like visual artists need that too. So I was able to, bring in that fashion background and makeup and photography, PR, marketing, life, entrepreneurship. And so coaching is kind of a way to, where I can use all my interests and passions and skills.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I've never thought of coaching in that way, but like hearing you talk about it, how you've combined kind of all of your passions into coaching really makes sense to do that.
Yeah.
Which again, I've never thought of it that way, but it's kind of like the perfect mesh of all the things you enjoy doing, and you're also getting to help others grow and find their passions and find ways to do what you've done.
Yeah. And also, I have never been a performing artist, but I always just loved performing artists. And like, ever since I was a kid, I just think of like, I was obsessed with actors and films and theater and dance and music and everything, all those various career choices I had and transitions. It was all so that I could be around performing artists. Like that was my why. That, I was way too shy when I was a kid to be a performer myself, but I just wanted to be around them. So when it came down to, high school career, what are you going to do with your life? I was like frustrated that, none of the topics or careers that it was mentioned interest me. I was like, no, that's all sounds really boring. And then I looked at my Pat Benatar tour program book and I flipped to the back to the credits and I looked through the list. I was like, okay, obviously I want to be part of that world. So what can I do? And I saw photographer. I was like, that's it. Okay, gonna be a photographer. Never picked up a real camera before. And but I took photography in high school. Then I went into a 2-year technical photography school program. But it was all just because like I get to, when I want to photograph models and actors and performers and musicians. Then even when I moved to Toronto and I got in with MAC Cosmetics and went down the makeup artistry path, I still was doing like photo shoots with bands, video shoots, on my spare time,
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be around performers. I did journalism again, because I want to write about musicians. And then when makeup was boring me and the day job was kind of turning too corporate, I was like, obviously I want to be in the music industry. So then I went to entertainment management school, became a publicist from that. And yeah, I've done a lot of things.
I love that though.
I sometimes get exhausted telling my own story.
Well, and it's good though, because it's I think maybe not so much now with like younger generations, but a lot of times growing up, you're kind of told you pick one thing, right? And that's your career. Like you're in that for eternity.
Yeah.
And so it's always good, I think, to remind people that that is not the case, right? Like you can go to school for something, try it for a little while. If it's not your jam, you can do something else. Like that's okay. You're not like married or, contracted to do this one thing for your entire life. So it's always great hearing people's stories about how they've, like, I mean, you've done so much and you've probably had some absolutely just amazing experiences throughout your life as you've tried new careers and gone back to school and done different programs. And I think that adds so much to your life.
Yeah.
Just sat in an office.
And yet, no matter what I was doing, I was not feeling like I fit in. And I was jealous of those people that did know what they wanted to do from a young age and stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever seen Emily Wapnick's TED Talk?
I have not. I'm making a note. I'm going to watch it.
I kind of think like these days, anyone who says they're a multi-passionate or a multi-potentialite has seen her TED Talk, because that's the only reason I'm here too. So remember, I mentioned that I was going to put everything on dianefoy.com, wherever it took me, photography, makeup, whatever. And everyone told me it was a horrible idea. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but people like, why would you give up your company name? It's established. Why would you put all this stuff? It's going to confuse your audience. All that advice that we've all been told. And it's like, it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. And then I was like, I'm going to do it anyways. But then I still didn't follow through with that, because then when I went to coaching, my own coaches were telling me, you got to niche down. I'm like, I want to coach all creatives. Why can't I do that? Well, you got to niche down. Okay, I guess performing artists. And she was like, well, what kind of performing artists? Do they call themselves performing artists? I'm like, no, they're musicians, actors. Okay, so I'm niching down to musicians and actors. And that's been my message for the last, year or two. Musicians and actors. And it's literally only like 6 weeks ago that I changed to multi-passionate. And because it just was always not feeling right. And so the Emily TED Talk, maybe 2017, 18, I saw it. And I was like, I knew I was right, because she did this TED Talk, and it was like the careers were different, but it was like she was telling my story of how she was in a punk band. Then she wanted to be a lawyer. Then she wanted to do something else. And she would tell the story kind of how I did, where, yeah, I did this for a while. It was my new passion. I just dove head in, studied everything I can about it. And then I would get bored. Mm-hmm. But then I would discover this other thing and dived head in, like she told this story. And then as she's noticing that pattern in herself, she's started to think, is there something wrong with me? Like, why can't I just stick with one thing? Mm-hmm. Why do I fear success? Like, and those are all the thoughts that I was thinking all these years too, of like, you look at other people that are like, oh, yes, I want to be a musician from a young age. And that's all they ever wanted to do. They don't get bored of it. They just that's all they wanted to do. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with me that I can't do this? And so Emily and then she's like, she discovered multipotentiality, that it's a psychology term, that it just means that there are some people who they can't just pick one thing and stick with it. It's not who they are. They can excel in 2 or more fields, and they're just endlessly curious. And the rest of the TED Talk is her telling, the regular people why they should work with multi-potentialites, because of all our superpowers. So it was really, gotta see it, gotta watch it. It's just empowering. I'm like, finally, there's nothing wrong with us. And she, yeah.
We're not broken.
Yeah.
And so something I'm curious about, because it's something I've struggled with myself, as I'm sure you have at some point, and others multi-passionate folks, is figuring out how to combine things or embrace their talents and ambitions and really focus them. Because I guess like personally, I have a lot of passions, and it's hard for me to figure out what I should be focusing on, or what I should spend more time on, or how to combine them into one brand. Like all of those questions, right, I think are pretty common for people who are multi-passionate. So I'm curious as to how you coach or what tips or tricks you use to kind of help people embrace that way of thinking.
Yeah, it is a challenge because we're kind of go with the flowers. It's like I really want to do this for a while. Okay. Oh, what's that over there? Oh, I need to do that over there. And I learned that you kind of have to focus on something, but I think it's figuring out what your priorities are and what do you like. You might list 10 different things that you want to do, but it's good to kind of look at each one and go, how important is it to you to do, on a scale of 1 to 10, or put them in the order of where your passion lies. And that what really helped me also is all those people that tell you can't do all those things. I just say, someone said it to me and now I say it, is like, it doesn't mean you have to give up anything. It just means let's focus on 1 or 2 things here, make that successful. Like we got to make a living. So
yes.
What is the thing of all your passions? Which one would be the easiest to implement and the fastest to start making money? That should be like your one priority. And you could still do your other things, but more of a dabbling way, like put all your focus into what you can start to make money at that you also love. When that is a little bit more flowing, easier, you've established something, then pick your next one. And that's why, like all these, I think when everyone was telling me it was a horrible idea, I would look to like the famous people and go, well, Kathy Ireland has like, she's a model, she was an actress, she's like furniture, she's making all the, and even now like the Beyonce's and the Rihanna's, it's like they do all these things, but they didn't do them all at once. And so maybe they were a singer-songwriter first. They developed that. Then they were like, okay, now I have the freedom to go after my fashion designs that I want to do. Then, beauty brand. Okay, then we add that in. It's like, it's in layers you build it. And I think even if we don't want to be like J-Lo and I want to be J-Lo, but I don't want it that bad. Because that's also the thing. It's like you can do anything you want, but are you prepared to do the work, to give up the sacrifices to do it? I love J-Lo, but she works her ass off. She works hard. And I'm like, I don't have it in me. But she is a role model to me because like her work ethic
is
insane. And so you find your role models too. And I think that's also what I love about coaching is, I have coaches that inspire me, and then I'm able to do that for my clients. And it's figuring it just makes everything happen faster, because when you're left on your own, figuring out everything yourself, it's harder to move forward because you're trying to figure it out. Whereas if you have a coach that's already figured it out, or they've already helped other people get to where they want to be, it just gets you where you want to go faster.
Yeah,
and
it's definitely overwhelming to try to figure that all out on your own.
Yeah. And I think I've always been a figure it out myself person, but it also left me sometimes without focus because I would go with the flow and, I'm going to do photography for a while. Oh no. And now I want to paint. Like, I want to do jewelry. And it's like, I would just go.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I wasn't thinking about how I can actually make money at these things.
I am doing that right now in my life. I'm at that stage right now. I'm literally like, I'm going to do branding and marketing and podcasting. And then I'm going to work in my photography with the branding and marketing, but I'm also going to do art and art markets and write.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I like the process of like sitting down and saying, okay, like, which one of these things can I, like, if I look at them as like, this is a career versus this is a hobby or a side hustle, and break it down in that way, like into maybe like columns or something. I think that is a really useful tool to kind of work through where you should focus.
And I think it took me a long time to figure out that not every interest or hobby that you have has to turn into a business.
Yes. Oh, I have to remind myself of that constantly.
Yeah. And like, and also sometimes my creative outlets are right now, like my kind of thing that's not a business. And part of it is also because I think it sucks, but like I like mixed media painting, crafts, collage art.
Nice.
But I don't know what I'm doing. And so and that really is a hobby because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I don't think anyone would buy what I'm doing, but I like doing it and it's for myself. And also if you do the calculations of what you should charge for something, of how long you spent on it, it's like, yeah, here's this piece of crap. But because I spent a year on it, it's $1,000.
You can buy this for $1,000.
Yeah. But one day, maybe I will learn enough and be good enough to sell it. Maybe people will want to buy it. I enjoy it. I'm going to keep learning it, but it's a hobby because but there's other things like the jewelry. I haven't really put focus into making that a business, but I want to, and maybe do more photography again as a business. But you have to kind of, again, focus on, okay, what's going to make me money? And also what's going to be your main. I think my coaching is my focus because it's what I think is what I love to do the most. And because it does bring all my experience into one thing. And I love helping other people and being able to understand what someone's going through. And when they are kind of lost, going, I don't know how to do this. And I could go, oh, but you do that, and that, and that. And they're like, oh, that sounds simpler. It's just like, I love being able to help people because of all my experience. Like it took me a long time to get here. And sometimes I even forget my experience. But so that way, I guess my advice comes a lot more naturally because I've already experienced it all and figured it out. So coaching is my main priority. And so if you go to my website, it's all about coaching. But I was saying, it literally was only like 6 weeks ago that I changed to multi-passionate artist being my niche, because I was starting to not be driven by what I was doing. Like I love musicians and actors. That was my focus, but I still kind of didn't feel right. Or I always felt like I was begging to be in their club, but I'm not a musician or actor. So I was always not totally in their clubs. Yeah. And I'm like, why can't I just go back to what I really wanted to do in the beginning, which is creativity coaching for multi-passionate artists. And it's who I am. And because I've had that, I still love musicians and actors, but yeah, I like the ones that also want to do all kinds of other things. And so I'm tired of hiding parts of who I am. So now I will go back to my original thing of putting photography and jewelry and stuff on my website as well. But I think it's going to still be clear that coaching is my number one priority. So it's just figuring out, of all the many things that you want to do, what do you want to do most? And also, like, depending on what kind of photography you do, maybe it's seasonal. So if you were a wedding photographer, you're going to be crazy busy all summer long doing photography. So maybe that's your photography season. And then
that's a good way to look at that.
When the fall hits, okay, wedding season's over. I can now do my podcast consulting or whatever it is that you're doing, and helping people launch their podcasts. And that could be your season for that. And then
that's a good way to break that up. Yeah.
In the new year, maybe that's something else, another business you want to do or you're doing. you could focus on.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that either. Kind of looking at your focuses or your passions by kind of seasonally. But that makes a lot of sense as well.
There's many ways you can do it. And also there's different ways, even being multi-passionate, there are like serial specialist. And I think that's maybe what I used to be, because some people need to do all this stuff all the time. And where I think that's more what I'm doing now. But before, like I had long careers in things I was doing. So it wasn't like I did it for a year, got bored and did something else. It's like, I was like a good 8-10 years. I was a makeup artist. That's kind of all I was doing. And before that, I was a photographer. That's all I was doing. I was doing some makeup in there too, and then PR, my main thing. Even though I still was doing some other things, I guess as more hobbies, but I was a specialist in those things. And now I'm combining it into like an umbrella career. So there are different ways of going about it. Some people are serial specialists. You focus on one thing and that's kind of all you're doing for the next few years. And then when you start to lose interest, then you go on to something else. And then there's others that they want to do it all now. So then that's probably where you are. You're like, oh, I know it. So then, okay, well, what do you want to do most? And also consider, what are you going to make money at?
Yeah, I think that's where I get really hung up on, because the things I want to do the most are the things that will not make me money. So then I have to sit and go, okay, so yes, I really enjoy these and I really want to do them, but I'm not going to make money from them. So I've got to rethink everything and rework everything and find, those are going to have to be my side hustles, I guess. But I think there's also a sense of like, again, just speaking for myself, I don't know if other people have the same kind of feeling, but it's like, I'm running out of time. Like I want to do a lot of things and feel like I'm running out of time or there's not enough time. So I try to do as much as possible at one time, just so I can like experience it all. And so there's a lot of that as well. That's kind of like playing into my
running out of time in what way? Like your age?
Yeah, like age, or like having to go back into a corporate job or working like a typical like 9 to 5, like that, kind of like going back into the quote unquote like normal working force. Whereas because I'm working for myself right now and I do what I want and it's wonderful and I love it. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, if don't make this work and I run out of time or I run out of finances, then I'm going to have to go back to that 9 to 5. And so that's something too, that like kind of sticks in the back of my brain. I'm like, I got to hustle. I got to make this work, which in turn leads me to doing too many things.
If anything, I'm thinking that's a reason to narrow your focus, because when you're trying to do so many things at once, you don't really accomplish anything in any of them. And yes, I get it, because I did that for many, 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 way too long. Because I would go with the flow, go in all these different directions, but I wouldn't really be successful in any of them because my focus was just all over the place.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I experienced.
So I'm curious about your running out of time thing. When it comes to age, well, hey, I'm 50. And, I feel like I'm just starting something new. And I'll probably start something new again when I'm 60. It's just like, I've accepted this is who I am. This is my life. I'm good with it. So I don't think age is really a factor. And I think that piece of you got to do all this now because at some point you think you're going to have to go back. There's something to explore there, because if you're feeling like it's a dread that you have to go back and you don't want to, that should be more driving force to make something in all these things that you do work.
Yes. this is where we could go all in. I'm like, listen, we could talk about the anxiety behind all of it, which causes me to freeze up. Like there's a lot of like, the mental side of this whole thing is really interesting. Again, at least for me, I don't know how this plays out for other multi-passionate folks, but for me, there's like a little bit of like analysis paralysis almost, where, you're, like you said, you find something that you like, you dive into it, you do all this research, you do, get whatever you need to do it, and you love it. But then the anxiety is like definitely holds me back. And there's like imposter syndrome there and a whole bunch of other fun stuff.
Yeah, that's where I think coaching really helps, because you could take a course to learn the how to do marketing stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's that deep inner work. And that's why also my focus when it was with musicians and actors, it was like PR and marketing, because it was actually because I thought that's what people wanted from me. Mm-hmm. And it is. And that's why I went with it. But then I would get annoyed when people would come to me for PR marketing.
You're like, this is not what I want to be doing.
No. But I think my belief, I feel strongly, because I've had a lot of experience in the entertainment industry and in PR marketing. And if you don't stop and do that inner work, you're not going to be successful. So you can skip it and go straight to PR marketing, but you're not going to be successful. Whereas that's a thing, like people would come to me for that, but then you got to start out with personal branding. And
yes,
all that is that personal inner work. And that's what I love coaching people on. But I was getting some clients that were impatient. They just wanted to get to the social media tips.
Oh God.
Just teach me social media, teach me. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not going to know what to say when you get there. Then you're not consistent posting every day because you're like, I have no idea what to post. But if you take that time, all it is building that foundation of, okay, let's stop. Let's figure out, what do you really want? Mm-hmm. What do you want your life to be in, say, 5-10 years? Like really get into it and exploring it. Like, where do you want to live? Who do you want to be around? Who do you want to be an influence for? All these different things, picture it. And then, okay, then you just kind of work backwards and go, okay, if that's kind of where I want my 5-10 year to be, okay, where do I need to be at 5 years? Where do I need to be at 2 years? What are my goals for this coming year? Then, okay, 1 year from now, what would you like your life to be? What do you want to be doing? How are you making money? And who are you surrounded by? Who are you helping? And then again, you work backwards in the goal setting to figure out, so that kind of, okay, in order to make my 1 year goal, okay, I need to do these things in this month and that month and that month. And you get it so that, okay, my 1 year vision for this month, these are all the things that I need to get accomplished to be on track. And when you break it down that specific, then you feel like you're moving towards something, when your to-do list is email this person. Check. It's that one little thing, and you're one step closer to your future vision. Without that, you float, which I totally did.
Yeah.
And even now I struggle like this. I'm coaching a few artists right now about this whole vision and goal setting stuff. And I'm like, I warn you, I don't always take my own advice. Like, it's hard.
Yep. That's the thing I love about like coaches too, or like mentoring. Oftentimes I find that like I can talk someone through like branding and marketing and social media marketing and all of that. But when it comes to doing it for myself, I'm like, oh my God, I need a coach of my own.
Yeah.
that outside voice that kind of walking you through it does wonders. Like I can sit there and tell myself something over and over again and not do it. But the moment I have someone else say, hey, here's a list of 5 goals or whatever for you to complete this month, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I'll do these. Yeah. It just takes that other exterior voice and insight to kind of drive things forward sometimes.
Yeah, like I have this kind of goal setting system, and I'm so glad I have it because I'm definitely way more ahead than I used to be when I just floated around. And it helps because if I feel like, how I say I don't take my own advice is that I don't always stay on track with the goal setting month by month, breaking it down every month, revisiting my goals every month. But I find I love having the system, like learning it in the first place, because if I start to feel like I'm floating, or if I wake up and I don't know what I'm supposed to do that day, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So then it's a reminder to like, okay, revisit the goals. Okay, what are my priorities? And it also, everyone's brain is different. There are some people who thrive when you give them this goal setting system. They will break it down to what I need to do today to be that one step closer. Fantastic. We all aspire to that. But you also have to know your own, how you work best, the time of day that you thrive, or the time of day that you're kind of not totally awake yet, and knowing, what tasks to put in those areas. And I think the way that I still have a bit of a go with the flow is that I don't bring it down to what I need to do every single day. So I leave it a little bit open, but I kind of will, what do I need to get done this month helps. And then maybe look at it on the Sunday night. Okay, what are my priorities for this week? That way, if you wake up Monday and you kind of don't feel like doing that, but I could do that for a while. Okay, let's do that. And it just means that the other thing, hopefully you're in the mood to do that another day, but it helps to break it down. And I wish I was better at it, but it's a good system to have so that you can always remind yourself, okay, I need to revisit. And especially we're heading, by the time this is airing, it's brand new year.
It's a new year. Yes. It's a perfect time to start.
Start thinking, and well, hopefully you've already kind of planned it, but like, even if you're just starting now, think about what do you want to accomplish a year from now? What should be your focus, say, in the next 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
That way you're not always overwhelmed, because when we have so many amazing goals, it can be discouraging, or how you were saying, like you freeze because you can't possibly do it all.
Yeah, it can seem so huge when you look at it out too far.
Yeah, that's why it's good to kind of do this work, but then put all those goals away and then just focus on the next 2 months.
Oh my gosh, this makes me want to like sit down with my planner and like start planning. So I need to start planning for this new year anyways. So this is some motivation. These are amazing tips. I'm a huge planner anyways. So, but I do exactly what you said. Like I will plan out too far or too far down, from the week to the day to the hour.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh my God, look at all these things I have to do. When in reality, it's like 2 things. I've just broken it down too far to manage. So these are great tips.
And I think also by doing that, okay, where do you want to be in a year, and breaking it down to what do you need to accomplish each month to make that happen, it also helps you figure out whether your goals are realistic, because you could, in a year, I want to be doing this and this and this and this. And then when you break it down to what you have to actually accomplish each month to make that happen, you might have overshot or undershot. Like it might make you realize, oh, okay, honestly, I can't possibly do all that. So let's move the timeline a bit. Let's maybe narrow the focus a bit. It helps you kind of plan that way instead of feeling like you're never going to get there because you overshot.
Yeah, that can be soul crushing. Oh my gosh, so much great advice.
This episode of the Wandering Creatives podcast is sponsored by Coots Creations, branding and marketing for creatives by creatives. Coots Creations serves small businesses, entrepreneurs, and creatives throughout the country with branding, marketing, and social media management. We accomplish this by creating unique graphics, a cohesive visual brand, and content that tells your brand's story. and builds trust with your customers. Visit cootscreations.com and book your free consultation today.
In order to be successful with publicity and marketing and all that, you need to start with the authentic personal branding, which is really just taking that time. Yeah, we went through goals, but then the next part would be, why do you want this? Do you know your why? You know, what is the driving force? Because it's too easy to give up when challenges come up. So if you get clear on why you want to achieve these things, it becomes that driving force. Then it's exploring your limiting beliefs. We all have them. And it's exploring your values. That's where the basis of your authentic personal brand, because it's just you. And it's just exploring what is really important to you. Then what is your story? What parts of your story could you put out there and share that will connect with people? That's all personal branding is. And sometimes people just think it's all this marketing talk. And I'm like, but that's why I love that part, because it is that deep inner work. And then if you go through all that, then I'll teach you marketing and PR and social media and all that stuff. But it's that foundation is what you need to be successful in any of it.
Yeah, it's so important. And that's what, as like a podcast coach as well, that's where I like to start, because it's very similar. Like a lot of people just want to jump into podcasting. Like, what gear do I need? Like, how do I, what hosting platform do I need to be on? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back. First, I asked that question, what is your why? Why do you want a podcast? Like, what are your goals? Who is your ideal audience? How are you going to find your audience and your listeners? Like, what story are you telling with your podcast? So it's because it is pretty much the same thing. Like, you are building a brand around your voice and your storytelling abilities. So in order for it to be authentic and for people to connect with it, you really have to kind of dig deep and do a lot of soul searching to figure out why you want to do it. And that's what's going to keep you motivated to keep doing it.
Yeah. And especially with podcasts, because I went into mine knowing that most podcasts don't make it past the 7th episode or something like that.
Yep.
And it's because you jump into it and just, I'm going to do a podcast. Okay, here I got the equipment and let's start. And then you realize how much work's involved. And then you quit because you're like, I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah. Or you run out of topics because you don't have a solid, reason for podcasting. Or it's pretty amazing when you think about it, how people will just jump into it and then buy all the stuff and then just stop after 7 to 9 episodes.
But anything you do is going to be hard. You want to be an actor, you want to be a musician, you want to be a photographer, any of these creative things. There is no, you go to school and then you get a high paying job and do that.
That's it.
No, it's we all have to, there's so much more that goes into it that if you don't know why you're doing it, then it's too easy to quit.
Yeah, it's so important. And, I guess this is so funny. I've never thought of it as a personal brand. I always think of it as like your business brand and story and whatnot. But I guess when you are your brand, your business is you.
Yeah.
Then it's one and the same. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And even the major brands are starting to learn from this too. Because they're starting to instead of just focusing on the product, a lot of companies are starting to share their employee stories.
Yes.
And show about their values. So even the major brands are starting to get into this personal branding thing, because it all comes down to your values, what you stand for. And some companies show you what they stand for and you go, yeah, so I'm never going to shop there again. It's that's why it's so important. But especially for artists, it's your business brands are your personal brands, or your business brand is your personal brand. It's the values of your business should be your own personal values as well.
Yeah, you got to build that, like the authenticity and being genuine all adds into building that trust with your clients or your listeners or, whomever you're doing business with, which is why having that strong kind of vision of what you want your personal brand to be is so important.
Yeah.
You've shared so much amazing advice in today's episode. Do you have any, I guess, like kind of final words of advice or encouragement for our listeners when it comes to, building their authentic personal brand or finding ways to combine all of their passions into one?
I think it is a lot of what I said is like trying to find your priorities. You don't have to not chase some dreams, but maybe put some dreams on hold until you establish the other dreams that are more important at that time. Have a coach. Have me. I will offer all your listeners, if you connect with me, you can book an appointment for a free discovery session and really start to talk about what it is that you really want. What are your goals and how can we get you there? And whether it's me that is a perfect fit for you or I'm not the perfect fit for you. Either way, that's kind of the point of it, is figuring out, you want to find someone that shares your values and that you connect with. And that's, a coach that's going to inspire you and also educate you, and there's coaches for everything. I have a business coach. I have a financial coach. I have a copywriting coach. I have a social media coach. I have a video coach. I'm in a lot of programs.
Yes, there literally are coaches for everything. So as you mentioned, you do free discovery sessions. So where can our listeners find you?
So my website is dianefoy.com. If you want to book an appointment, it's dianefoy.com/booking. And I also have a freebie. So if you just want to download kind of what are the areas that I can coach on, but also just to know how to succeed and how to attract fans, media, and industry. Because no matter what your art is, you need to attract the fans, media, and industry in order to make a living at this or make money at this. So, and it all comes down to the industry and the media will come once you've built the fan base. And then in order to build the fan base, you need to build the personal brand. So this free download, it takes you through the stages of personal branding, social media, and publicity. So it kind of shows you kind of the roadmap. And then you either have to learn the how, or I will coach you on the how. And
I know personally, I'll be booking a discovery session. So.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And so the freebie is at dianefoy.com/freebie.
Freebie. Awesome. I will include links to all of Diane's information, including her Instagram and the booking link, as well as the freebie link in the episode description. So definitely check that out and check out her website and grab yourself a freebie or a free discovery session as well. Like we can all use all the help we can get.
Yes. Diane,
I really can't thank you enough for being on today. You've really shared a ton of amazing insight into what it means to be a multi-passionate artist and how you can work that in your favor, and also all of the planning tips, setting goals, so important and so helpful. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful. So yeah, if you now you have an experience of, if you get on a call with me, I'm just going to throw a ton of information at you.
Yes. Oh,
and tell you everything I know.
You check out Diane's podcast, The Multi-Passionate Artist. It's on all major streaming platforms. So if you want to learn more, you can definitely check out Diane's podcast as well.
Yeah, there's some amazing interviews with some fairly famous musicians, actors, and dancers, and also coaches. And There's some solo shows in there and all that good stuff.
I was looking at your guests that you've had on before, and I was like, oh damn, Diane, okay. You've had some really amazing guests on. So I'm definitely going to be listening to the pod. And with that, again, Diane, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today. It has been amazing to have you on the podcast. I would also like to thank you, the listeners, for tuning into today's episode. If you have questions or comments for me or for any of my guests, including Diane, you can text or call me on the hotline 252-419-6004, and we will answer your questions on a future episode of the podcast. Be sure to like, rate, and review the podcast, and you can follow us on Instagram at wandering_creative_ and visit our website, cootscreations.com.
This has been a Coots Creations production. Follow the show on Instagram at wandering_creative_ and on Twitter at wandering_pod. For more information, go to cootscreations.com. Like, rate, review, and subscribe. To sponsor the Wandering Creatives podcast, visit www.cootscreations.com/podcast-sponsorship-opportunities. You can also click the link in the episode description below. To be a guest or a featured maker on the podcast, click the link in our Instagram bio or contact us at cootscreationsllc@gmail.com.